Open your cerebral cortex and shift your lobes into upper beta phase, because you are going to have Bitcoin knowledge transmitted directly into your vestibulocochlear. Your host of Bitcoin Knowledge is Trace Mayer, an early Bitcoin advocate since it cost $0.25, but this is not intended to be investment advice. A doctor of jurisprudence, but this is definitely not legal advice. And an investor in core cryptocurrency infrastructure, including Armory, BitPay, Kraken, and Mitagio, but this is not a recommendation of those services. Here, you get fed via direct mind download with pure and free Bitcoin knowledge.
Welcome back to the Bitcoin Knowledge Podcast. We have a tremendous interview with Charlie Shrem. We're going to be talking all about how to buy and sell Bitcoins. Charlie's been one of our just extreme entrepreneurs in the Bitcoin space. He was CEO, Chief Compliance Officer of BitInstant. Charlie, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Just to get kind of started off, how did you get into Bitcoin? Like, what are some of the businesses you've been involved in? Just give us a little bit of background about yourself.
I'm really envious of people that are coming to the space now because it's so much easier to buy and sell Bitcoin. There are so many more reputable companies that are not scams. There are amazing OTC markets. There are a lot of different, no matter where you are in the world, from Morocco to Monaco to Russia, you could probably get Bitcoin within one day at a very, very reasonable rate. And it used to not be the case. When I got involved in Bitcoin in 2000, I think it was like late 2010, early 2011, there was maybe one place to buy Bitcoin, and that was Mt. Gox. There was no other way unless you knew someone who could send it to you for free. Granted, Bitcoins were a lot cheaper, but still it was relative. So maybe it was like 7,000 Bitcoins for $1. But still, at the same time, it was hard to get unless someone would send it to you for free. So, I was browsing the Bitcoin forums one day, and I was trying to buy some Bitcoin. I had sent money to a new Bitcoin exchange that was just opened up for a week called TradeHill by Jared Kenna, and it was the first Bitcoin exchange based out of America. And I was excited because I didn't have to wire money to Tokyo, to Japan from Mt. Gox, and I had sent money to Jared, the CEO, and just my luck, when I sent him money, ING shut down his bank account, so my money was frozen. And I was like, wow, it took 3 days for the wire to get there. Now my money's sitting freezing for a week. Meanwhile, the price is going up. It's going up, and I'm losing out really badly. And I said, if this thing really if it's going to take off, if Bitcoin's going to take off, people need to be able to buy it and sell it. It's easy. You could buy coffee in Starbucks on the corner. I was browsing the forums one day, and I came upon a post by my soon-to-be business partner, Gareth Nelson, and he said, I have this idea, and the idea is essentially to float people Bitcoins, and they pay us, and we'll wait the time delays for the wire transfers, etc. And we'll take a small fee for that. And I said, hey, seems like a cool idea. And I decided to put up the money to do that, and that's how we started BitInstant. And BitInstant essentially allowed people to walk into places like 7-Eleven, CVS, Duane Reade, banks, Bank of America, Citibank, Wells Fargo. They deposit money into our accounts, or into 7-Eleven or Walmart or whatever, and we'd then fund their exchange accounts or give them Bitcoin directly, and then we'd wait the week or so until these banks would settle with us or 7-Eleven would settle with us, and ended up being something that people really needed. And we at one point were doing a few $1 million a day, and maybe 30-40% of all Bitcoin transactions were being bought and sold through us, and we were the primary retail method. What I was always saying was that exchanges should be, the average person buying under $10,000 worth of Bitcoin should not be going to exchanges. No one should be going to exchanges anymore at all. But if someone buying under $10,000 should be buying at retail from Coinbase. There's a new company, Celery, that is just opening up. Circle, of course. Circle has a bunch of problems, though. I've been having trouble buying it on it.
Really? I actually bought $5 worth, and it worked just perfect.
The other day when the price went down to $2.97, I wanted to pick up. I kept saying error. And Coinbase was ripping everything. They weren't gouging, but the price was like $2.80, $2.97 or whatever it was, or $300. They were charging minimum $3.30. I ended up buying it, and the price is over $3.30 now, so I'm happy, but I could have got it at $300 if I had money on Bitstamp.
Well, not like like that never happened to BitInstant either.
Yeah, true story. And that's why we never locked in rates because we just we would have lost a ton of money if we locked in rates to people.
Yeah, I think people really underestimate just how hard it was to buy Bitcoins in the early days. I mean, I've been around the space for a long time, and I mean, it was just you're gonna send money to some guy over the internet you don't even know.
It was so shady. We were venture funded. We were a real office in New York City. We had 20-something employees. We were really growing, and we were really doing great things until today. We never scammed any person. Occasionally, I'll have someone email me saying "Hey, I sent you money and you never sent it back to me." And even as early as last week, I sent someone a $300 check out of my own pocket, and he could be lying to me, but I want to make sure that no one could be calling me a scammer on the internet. And so we've always been right with our customers, but there were issues where our volume was growing so much, doing more than the exchanges, that we couldn't fulfill orders. And then the exchange APIs were going down, and we were going crazy, and we couldn't do anything. People were killing us online.
Yeah, I mean, there's really been just a ton of development in this space. I mean, not just on the Bitcoin protocol.
Only 2 years.
And not just on wallets. But, I mean, on all this core infrastructure, we've got companies like BitPay, Circle, Coinbase. We've got exchanges like Bitstamp and Kraken and Itbit and just all of this.
Lake BTC
and all of this is just all of this takes an entrepreneur like yourself to actually get in there and do something.
But it's so hard in the American market. A lot of these companies, they won't work with American customers. Coinsetter, I think, won't work with American customers. Will Lake work with American customers? They will.
Well, I think this takes us just right into a perfect area. You've had legal issues, as we know. I think it's one count of an unlicensed money transmitter.
That's what I pled guilty to.
Is what you pled guilty to. I was there actually in the courtroom in federal court.
That's it. We didn't have a money transmitter license, and we tried very hard to get one over the years, and we were very friendly with the government. But at the end of the day, I am guilty of that crime. We didn't have a license, and the law says you need to have a license in every state. And so we've got laws that are written 40 years ago, before the internet even really came around. These were built for the check cashers who, before the days of the internet, you'd have someone scam other people by taking money here, saying I'm going to send you money in California, and then never do it. And because there was no laws around it, and people were constantly getting scammed and defrauded. And that's why those laws were created, to protect the customer. So if you were a New York company and you wanted to service customers of California, you needed a California license. And so those days it kind of did make sense. But now with the internet, it's such a different business model that all these businesses are trying to do, but these laws were based on this old archaic system. Instead of rewriting laws, they just keep patchwork. So it's if your wiring in your house goes down, you just keep putting on band-aids and tape, and you just keep patchworking onto it instead of rewiring the whole house, because it's just easier and faster.
Yeah, and we won't talk about how they're doing the same thing with the actual information systems of the banks. We recently had, I think Royal Bank of Scotland had all their ATMs go down one day. We have JP Morgan, 76 million customer account information getting breached. Home Depot, Target, it's just crazy. Across the board. It's just a bunch of duct tape holding this together, right?
Do you remember last year? Many people don't remember it, but there was a 30-hour period when the whole Visa network in Canada went down. So no one with a Visa debit or credit card can use their cards. Imagine being able to be cut. All my cards are Visa. I don't have any MasterCards. Imagine being completely cut off from your money for 30 hours.
When was the last time the Bitcoin network went down?
It never went down.
The Bitcoin network's been around 5 years and never went down ever.
Because it's decentralized. There's no one central location to actually go down.
So we've got massive amounts of commerce going through things like Visa and MasterCard in the banks, and we got ATM machines that'll just fail out of the blue.
Yep.
And then we have entire countries their Visa just doesn't work.
Yep.
Does that pose any risk to the social order? And yet, when an entrepreneur comes in and wants to do some work in this innovative new field, they get slapped with these unlicensed money transmitter charges.
I'm challenging the status quo. There are people that own Visa and MasterCard, and these people are very close with the government and have super PACs and pay lobbying and do all these things to keep the laws like this. It's very hard to change these laws because they protect, unfortunately, one of the biggest things that I am scared about with this new thing called the Bit License. So the Bit License is supposed to be this kind of like way for Bitcoin companies to legally operate within New York and the rest of the country, and everyone's hailing it as a great success. My problem is that one of the things that I've been trying to push for is for a tiered system. Because yes, Coinbase, Circle, BitPay are going to say, yes, this is amazing, but these guys raised $30 million. These guys are the ones who can afford to do it. There's no difference in PayPal, etc. But the guys who are doing the real innovation in the space are the guys who are running the Bitcoin protocol and who are running Bitcoin companies out of their basements. For example, a company like BlockCypher. I don't think they raised a large amount of money, if any. But BlockCypher has only one of the good APIs that actually offers a way for companies to accept Bitcoin with zero confirmations and double spending. And that is one of the biggest problems that people say about Bitcoin, is that you have to wait 10 minutes for a confirmation. So now these guys are coming out and creating awesome software, but they can't afford to deal with the Bit License. And yes, the government came and said, all right, software people and miners don't have to deal with the license, but we don't know if that's true for every state, and we don't know how far that goes. And
and what they might change it to in the future.
Just don't know. So it just takes innovation and says, like, you know what, it's either too complicated to do it, so we're not going to do it, or we're going to leave the country and just not service American customers. So I joke that, like, there's this, like, thing a lot of companies have on the bottom of their website. It says, like, made in New York. Like, if you're a New York company, you can, like, be proud of that. Like, there's a bunch of these trucks that drive around, they have the logo, and a lot of, like, new startups, they made in New York. It's like, people should have a thing on it. It's like, banned in New York. Sorry, we don't service New York customers. So you can't do it.
Well, actually, last week, I had invited you to the panel that I was on at the British Consulate.
Killed it.
And yeah, it was pretty good, I have to admit. But, one of the questions was about the exchanges. And I was like, look, the largest exchange is Bitstamp in the UK. We've got BTCE, we've got Lake BTC, but we don't have any exchanges in the US. The US is not a player in the Bitcoin exchange market. Largely, would you say, because of these regulations?
It's just too scary. It's just, there's no legal way to do it, because if you try to do it, you try to raise money, no one's going to give you money because you're an illegal company.
Yeah, well, I mean,
and there's a risk you go to jail too. Especially the exchanges are harder. Companies like Coinbase that are retail, the government's not as worried about those guys for a bunch of reasons, because they are doing KYC, but also because retail, when you're selling Bitcoin from your own wallet to a customer and then you're buying it from, it's very easily trackable. But when you have an exchange, you have one guy who says, I want to sell 10 Bitcoin, that can be bought by 1,000 different buyers buying 0.001 each. So it's very entangled and complicated. And exchanges can be very good ways to launder money if they're not keeping logs and tracking all their customers and everything, which a lot of the exchanges do anyways. But they're being pushed out of the market at the same time.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if we've just seen the beginning of some of the legal issues with Bitcoin companies in the U.S.
I heard that there may be arrests and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, we don't want to speculate too much on things, but it just goes to show that when we're trying to build a solution to these big systemic problems, too big to fail. We've got. We give $700 billion to banks when their ATMs shut off in the middle of the night for a weekend.
Yeah.
And when the credit cards fail, that's a big, big problem that can, I think, in my opinion, could pose a big risk to just the social order of things. What happens if New York City, all the Visa and MasterCards go down?
It's a big problem.
What about getting food?
They're so old and they don't work. Last year, in the middle of the night, I needed to get money 9 o'clock, and I went to a Valley National Bank, and I used a credit union, and I put my debit card on the machine, and it just ate my card, and nothing happened. I was flipping out. I banged it. No one's working in the bank at 9 o'clock at night. I called the 1-800 number. They said, sorry, what are we supposed to do? We can't make the machine spit your card back. I was without a debit card till Monday. That's all my money right there I have access to. I was flipping out to borrow money from people for 3 days. This was on a Friday night.
Oh, it's just annoying.
It was the worst. What if there's a hurricane? What if there was a tornado? What if Hurricane Sandy came back? How would I get food, shelter? What am I supposed to do?
And that's the exact time when these systems that are not resilient, that are not decentralized, that's when they actually do go down. Is when you need them the most.
They're the first things that are going to go down. The ATM machines are not running on generators. They're not. It's just some banks are, but you could go to 7-Eleven, but like, what's going to happen? And then people run out of cash and they try to take more cash out, and it's just crazy.
Yeah. So. What our next episode is actually going to be with Marco Santori. He's a New York attorney. He's advises lots of Bitcoin companies. So we're going to really dig into like the legal issues there. But you talked about this OTC market, this over-the-counter market, and Bitcoin is very much peer-to-peer.
Yeah.
So, like, one of the easiest ways to get Bitcoins is just from one of your friends.
Yeah, or someone wants to sell. That's like when you're part of the flourishing New York community. I have a friend, he says, text me, he says, Charlie, I need to get out of Bitcoin to sell a coin or two. What can I do? And I say, sure, I'll buy them from you. Or another friend needs, gets paid in Bitcoin, needs some money. Can I buy it from you? Or they say, can I sell it to you? And it's just like a nice peer-to-peer. And usually there are no fees involved in that because everyone's benefiting. One guy needs to sell, one guy needs to buy. There's a price they agree on, usually a little bit higher than the exchanges sometimes, or not. It depends. And that's the best way to do it, to be honest, because both buyer and seller.
And that's really what was so troublesome in the early days was establishing the trust.
Yeah.
But as the network effects of Bitcoin take root, and I got tons of friends now. Like if I ever needed,
no matter where you go in the world, there's usually a Bitcoin community. You go to Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and you Google Lancaster Bitcoin Meetup. There's like 300 people in it, in the middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania, and you just text one of the guys or email him or send them a message. Hey, I want to sell some Bitcoin. Can you meet me? And for sure, I'm happy to meet another Bitcoiner.
Yeah, and like I was reading one of the Reddit threads, there was a kid traveling through Brazil, and his backpack got stolen, and his wallet, like everything, and he actually used the Bitcoin through kind of the network to get some reals in his hand so that he could actually go to the consulate and get. I mean, that's the network effect right there. Like in my case, I've gone, like I flew into a city outside the U.S. and it was late, and for whatever reason, like the currency exchange booth wasn't open like normal, but I went immediately to a dinner with some of the Bitcoin people, and bam, I was able to get the local currency super great. Easy, as long as I had Wi-Fi.
When I was in Argentina, are you crazy? I'm not going to use the ATMs over there. The rate is astronomical.
Well, not only that, but you get hit with the official rate instead of the blue market rate,
so
right?
You're getting 4 pesos to the dollar, when in reality, if you use the currency exchanges on the street, the black market guys, it's not really black, they're very nice people, it's like 8 pesos. It's like almost double.
Well, yeah, actually, because I was presenting at that same Bitcoin conference in Buenos Aires that you were at,
together, right?
And my buddy Kevin flew in, and I guess he hadn't been to Argentina before. He
didn't know what to do.
But he got $500 out at the airport, and then he gets to the conference and he was like, "Oh yeah, I got my cash at the ATM," and I was like, "Well, that was really dumb."
And so lost a lot of money. I didn't even realize.
Well, we got him the same number of pesos for like $220 of worth of Bitcoins.
It probably feels like crap after that happened.
Well, it was a learning experience for him.
People ask me to bring dollars with me so they can, because people there want dollars. They don't trust their fiat. But I'm saying, like, you trust our fiat more. It's like, sure, maybe ours is not going to fail as fast as yours, but I wouldn't want to be holding too much USD. Like, sure, cash is great, but I think Bitcoin and gold and other things are much better investments to keep your money in.
Well, and that raises the bigger spectrum.
Diversifying is very important.
Diversifying is very important. Like with your legal issues, they tried to seize all your assets and everything. And there's this big issue called civil forfeiture.
They can take any amount of money whenever they want.
Yeah, not only that, but in the Cayley case with the U.S. Supreme Court, they upheld that because you can actually get the warrant to seize with just a grand jury. So that means the defendant doesn't even get a chance to hear,
walk in
right?
And you say to a grand jury, like, look, that we believe this person. Can we take his money to check? And like, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
so
no.
So the grand jury says, okay, we can start that up, and then they can go and they can arrest you and seize all your assets. And even if that prevents you from hiring the counsel of your choice, the U.S. Supreme Court just upheld in Cayley that that's fine and passes constitutional muster. Even though there's absolutely no real due process, you don't get to challenge. You have no right.
You can't afford a real lawyer.
You get no notice, no right to appeal, no ability to be heard before your assets get seized. And so this civil forfeiture issue. Oh, and we're probably going to have an entire episode on civil forfeiture. But I think it's important to hit on this here because it's becoming the largest source of funding for many of these police departments because that's how they actually get their budget is how much money they seize.
And they sell it. They sell all the stuff too.
Yeah.
The property, like with the Silk Road case.
And so, having some Bitcoin, whether you lose your backpack when you're traveling, whether you're
safe.
you're a victim of identity theft, and for whatever reason, law enforcement, you're completely innocent victim of identity theft, but bam, like the law enforcement is able to convince a grand jury, and it's not like innocent people have never been targeted before, right?
Yeah.
But it would sure be nice to have some assets that
for a rainy day.
That are there for a rainy day. Like whether the bank fails with the ATM, whether the Visa's not working, whether your backpack gets stolen, civil forfeiture, and you're a victim of identity theft.
Even
because
a few $1,000s, just something to have there.
And the network, these network effects, like this network of being able to convert those Bitcoins into whatever currency you might be able to use.
Or product. Why even go to a currency? Just say, I'll give you Bitcoin if you can buy, give me a cell phone. You go to a foreign country and someone will buy you a prepaid cell phone and give it to you for Bitcoin.
Or you buy your groceries,
whatever.
And we got BitPay and Coinbase like running with the merchants, and BitNet just raised $14.5 million recently. A bunch of former Visa guys. So there are increasingly more ways to convert those Bitcoins into usable currency. So just to kind of what would be the note to end on? Like for people that want to buy and sell Bitcoins that are brand new to it. Well, first, of course, they need to get their wallets, right?
We're going to say, do it the most comfortable way possible. Like, go to Coinbase, go to Circle. It's easy.
Or one of your friends.
Make sure it's a friend who's going to sit and explain to you what you're investing in. Like, don't just say, can I buy Bitcoin? Go to dinner with that friend for an hour. Try to understand what Bitcoin is. Set up a wallet with them. Make sure you secure your wallet. Because one of the good things about Coinbase and Circle is that, one, they're insured, but two is that it's two-factor authentication. It's pretty safe, relatively. I mean, there are two types of wallets. There are custodial wallets, like these guys who are holding onto your coins, which aren't necessarily bad. It's a necessary evil, you can say. But there's also ways of holding the coins yourself in your own secured wallet. But that's like the next level. That's like an intermediate,
Well, so. and this is really a new technology, right?
Very new.
I mean,
it's what email was.
Yeah,
it's email back in the day was what people would argue. What does the @ symbol mean? Does it mean @ or to, or what's going on here? And it's they had TV shows about how to work email, and email used to be besides for I think it was before AOL was even around, there was another one, CompuServe. When CompuServe, setting up an email address with CompuServe was a whole hassle, and
or Genie,
or even anything was the hardest thing to do. And just like Bitcoin is, so it's just going to take maybe even 10 years for my grandmother to be able to see the utility of Bitcoin. But in the meantime, we can build out crazy innovation. Like AOL, people make fun of it today. People say AOL, haha, that's so funny. Who has an AOL email address? But people don't give AOL benefit for being that first mover in the space.
They laid a great foundation for a lot of people to really learn the new tech. And just because
everyone used AOL back in the day, I used AOL. Everyone used.
And just because you use Bitcoin one way when you just come into it, you can continue learning and growing and expanding your tool set and your skills, and then you'll be using Bitcoin a completely different way. Which I'd like to close with one of the stories, which actually involves BitInstant. I had a friend that I went to law school with, and her husband wanted to buy some Bitcoins, and we'd been over just chatting and everything, and so. I got him set up with one of the online wallets, and then we're trucking off, going down to, I think it's Wells Fargo, and depositing the cash to buy the Bitcoins with BitInstant. And next thing you know, like bam, he gets the text message. The Bitcoins are in his
That's awesome.
are in his wallet.
How
Like
you
just
work
within like 10 minutes, you know.
I forget when like a guy on a motorcycle told me like I got back on my motorcycle and I had
I had my Bitcoins. So he had his Bitcoins. They were all working, right? And I'd spent, maybe 30, 45 minutes teaching him how to do that. And I'm sure that if somebody wants to buy Bitcoins, just find your geeky or nerdy friend and like they'll show you how to do some basics with the wallet. Well, or go to one of the Bitcoin meetup groups, like meetup.com is a good option. Well, 8 months later, I get pinged from my buddy on Skype, and he's like, all my Bitcoins are gone.
What happened?
And we actually don't know what happened, but somehow his online wallet had got compromised, and he said, I know I should have put them in Armory, but I've just been procrastinating it. And I was like, well, sorry. He had $180,000 of Bitcoins.
Oh my God!
Which today it'd actually be a couple $1 million.
Oh my God! I hate these stories.
But he owned up to himself, and his stories actually. He said, when I had $100 of Bitcoin, I put $100 of thought into securing them, and when I had $180,000 of Bitcoins.
$180,000 of thought into.
I was still only putting $100 of thought into securing them.
This is it's like gold. If someone hands you $1 million worth of gold, you're going to spend $10,000, securing that gold or whatever.
Well, I think it's important for people to understand, like, you don't have to learn how to secure $180,000 of Bitcoins if you're only going to buy $20 worth or $100 worth. But once you buy $20 or $100 worth and you start getting comfortable with the tech and you want to put more money into it, that's when you need to go back and evolve and like just-in-time learning. You develop greater skills and abilities to secure the larger amounts of money. So I think that my buddy's story has been, is very enlightening, a very good parable for other people. I hope other people don't lose their Bitcoins like he did. And ironically, he's back in Bitcoin.
Good.
He's the most paranoid Bitcoiner I know.
Well, he should be.
Like he got a new laptop, and he actually like had him remove the wireless card. So that thing is thing's a rock, and he's
a lesson learned.
But he's putting a lot more thought into securing his Bitcoins because he's got more value, and so it's it can be very much a learning curve, I think, for people. Do you have any other suggestions for people that are just wanting to get started in the space?
You don't have to start with so much. Start with a little bit and build your way up. There's no need to jump in so heavy. You don't have to jump into the deep end right away. You just dabble a little bit and make sure you're comfortable. If at the end of the day you're going to sleep and you're worried about losing all your money, then you'll have too much money in there. It's a good story.
Yeah, so
have a good time. Learn technology. It's fun.
It is fun. It's fun to figure out how to make it work, and you meet new people and you have something in common, and you can go to the meetup groups and all of this stuff. It when we learn these new skills,
it's a social revolution.
It is in a lot of ways. When it comes time to dissolve the monetary bands which bind us together. We have to, we're either going to have repression or regeneration, and the old system is failing. It's held together by duct tape. Have there not been enough wake-up calls like ATMs, visas, hacks, identity theft?
We need to give people a better solution, and that's what's going to happen. People know that there's a viable, better solution out there, which there is, but it's not matured enough yet, and people will start to question and people won't want to use those old bands anymore. Yeah,
why continue using the newspapers and the pagers and physical books, etc. when we got these potential solutions. So thank you so much for being with us, Charlie.
Thanks for having me.
Be sure to get a copy of the free Bitcoin Guide at freebitcoinguide.com. Got a question or suggestion? Record your voice at bitcoin.kn. Don't be shy. To help the show, share bitcoin.kn with friends, post about it on Reddit, and otherwise spam the interwebs. Your iTunes comments and 5-star reviews are very important to us. Please continue tuning in to the Bitcoin Knowledge Podcast, where we release interviews with the top people in the Bitcoin world. Now take some choline and let that Bitcoin knowledge consolidate.